What's going on? Welcome back to the party. On today's episode, we're breaking down Combine Week for the Vikes and the biggest burning questions.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and in commemoration, I plan to sit around in my underwear all weekend.
Hey, this is Arif Hasan with the Wide Left Substack. In commemoration of the Underwear Olympics, I plan to watch Luke Braun all weekend.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next-level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Boxers or briefs? What's going on? Back in the lab, back at another Minnesota Football Party.
No, we'll find out. Don't worry about it.
Whoa. Spoiler alert. Right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Remember, you can always find the show on audio if you'd like to listen under the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed, and on video, of course, up on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, keep up with all the action. Lots to dive into. Combine Week, KOC and Kwesi, they'll be in Indy speaking to the media up at the podium. That's on Tuesday. What's the biggest questions they're going to have to answer up on the podium? We'll touch on that. Plus, Ron Johnson stopping by. He's still in Mexico, but I got to ask him, 6 different Gophers got invited to Indy. Which one fits best for the Vikes? Plus, I got another prospect of the day as well. Before we get into all that, quick reminder, after you're done with us, go check out Luke on Locked On Vikings. New episode each and every day right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. All right, fellas. Monday, I'm thinking back to Monday, we had that lengthy discussion about Vikings pushing Aaron Jones's void date back, which one would presume, I guess, means they probably want to bring him back. They get a couple more weeks to kind of figure out a deal. Since we last spoke on Monday's episode, Byron Murphy was also added to that list. I know his deal was set to void, 23 days prior to the new league year. Now they push that date back. Again, likely signaling they want to bring him back. They want some extra time to work on the details of some sort of long-term deal. It also means they can't franchise tag him now as well, which I don't think that was ever like a strong likelihood, but nonetheless, I mean, we can take that off the list in the table officially now. So signs point to Aaron Jones and Murphy, I would guess, likely getting new deals and coming back. They did not reach the same agreement with Sam Darnold, though. But like we talked about, they can still franchise take Sam Darnold when the time comes. Are things becoming any clearer at all after these couple moves? Like, they've got money to play with, especially now with the cap, which we can talk about going up another $20 million or so. They obviously have a lot of holes to fill, though, bringing back some of these guys, which, you would assume would be option A, bring back at least a handful of these core guys that are hitting the free agency market. But can we mark down Murphy and Aaron Jones back in purple next year now? Or how much does this news, I guess, move the needle for you guys?
I don't think they're tagging Sam. Kevin O'Connell's like, yeah, we'll see how free agency works out for him.
Have fun, bud.
He's just saying it. Yeah, like he's just wishing him luck and ushering him out the door.
Yeah.
As for the cap, it's important to note that it went up. It was expected to go up, but it went up more than it was expected to go up, at least by over the cap.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 20 mil, I believe. I think it went up around 20 mil last year, and now it's going up again 20 mil. I can pull the article back
over the cap thought it would kind of taper, and it hasn't.
Yeah,
so that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money everybody has, but when you're dealing with void years and dead cap and stuff, it advantages teams that do more tomfoolery.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Take the negative interest void cap loan. So the pushing back the void date signals an intent and an interest as PHT and VL. There's got to be like a thing that stands for, right? Like,
one would hope.
Anyway, as that user in our chat points out, they push back void dates on previous players that they attempted to re-sign, but didn't re-sign either of them. And I think that's probably the way to look at this here. It's like, obviously the Vikings, pushed that back because they wanted a longer deadline with which to negotiate. which suggests that they want to negotiate and want to bring those players back. But that also means that they didn't get a deal done, right, by that first deadline. And so they're somewhat far apart, probably not so far apart that it feels irretrievable, but that doesn't mean they'll be able to close that gap. So they want Murphy back, they want Dalvin back, but certainly they're going to be cautious about what that price is. I think that's what that signals to me.
Yeah, 100%. And if you're listening at home, he mentioned Dalvin Tomlinson and Marcus Davenport, two good references there. That they did push those guys back. They didn't end up bringing them back. So no guarantee by any means.
Just means they're talking more.
They're just talking more. They get the little bit bigger of a window again. Murphy maybe, I guess, was on the pie chart of possibly franchise tagging, but I don't think it was a very big piece of that pie chart by any means. So that's obviously off the table, which obviously pushing back that date and just getting more time to kind of work out a deal. They were cool with that kind of risk reward, I suppose, at that point. Kwesi and KOC, they'll be at the podium Tuesday in Indy. Always love those press conferences. Arif, you going to Indy, by the way? I know you went to the Shrine Bowl. You've been to Indy before, I believe. You going to Indy?
Yeah, I've spent way too much money, and will be doing so to go down to Indianapolis to do who knows what. I don't know why I'm there.
You get those credit card points, though, man. Trust me, it's a bonus, man. Trust me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Get bird flu. Get whatever pandemic's going around this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. Well, I did
Combine tradition.
Yeah, I think I did get COVID in February 2020. Can't tell.
Everyone got COVID.
Yeah,
February
but
2020.
yeah, that was cool and awesome, and the sickest
great.
I've ever felt. We'll see if we could beat that record. The combine is all about those kinds of records.
It's all about growth. Yeah.
Fastest 40-yard dash got a new record last year.
Yep.
People have been eyeing the bench press record for a little bit now since Stephen Paella. And I'm aiming for a new sickest person record. We'll see.
What is the other tradition? What is the shrimp cocktail sauce that everybody loves? The super hot
Izzy's or something like that.
That doesn't sound right, but
it doesn't sound right. But there's a steakhouse in Indy that does an insane shrimp cocktail sauce. I love it. It's kind of hokey. A lot of people are getting tired of that being a tradition.
Did you get the shirt? Did you get the hat and shirt? Is your picture on the wall?
It is crazy how much horseradish they put on a piece of shrimp. But the good news is if you're sick, which again I plan to be, it will clear out your sinuses.
Yeah, like a big horseradish kick when you're sick. That's the stuff.
Yeah, so that's
St. Elmo's. St. Elmo's.
Oh yeah, St. Elmo's.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. If you guys were there, which Arif sounds like you will be, I don't know if you plan on going to the actual presser on Tuesday. Not sure what time they're going to be actually up at the podium, but what would be one of the, kind of top of your head, more pressing questions you would ask Kwesi or KOC? Like, I know a lot of people, they're probably going to ask about Sam Darnold, franchise tagging, wondering. I'm still wondering if there's going to be any teams. This is what's great about Indy, by the way. This kind of kicks off all the agents, all the coaches, all the GMs meeting together in the same facility, same room, and starting the conversations. And that's not to say that conversations haven't already been taking place, but now you get to have them face to face.
A lot of these are,
and kind of it really gets the ball rolling. You really get into second and third gear with some of these things. So
this is where Spielman and what's his name, the agent,
Brzezinski?
wasn't. No. The agent. It wasn't Hillier. Zach Hillings, right? The Adrian Peterson's agent.
Yep.
They got into a shouting match at the combine a couple years ago. That was cool. That was
great.
Awesome.
Was that Dalvin? Was that Dalvin or AP's guy?
Oh no, because Dalvin's guy is
Zach Hiller is Dalvin's guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was Dalvin's guy. I think it was AP's guy. This is like a while back.
Yeah.
Ben Dogger.
Yeah, they got. Yeah, Ben Dogger. They
wore a Bucks hat randomly to an interview or something and made him pretty freaked out.
They got into a shouting match, and then at some point Ben Dogger left CAA. CAA sued Ben Dogger. A bunch of inside baseball. I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast loves to hear about.
People hate that guy. If you were around, if you were paying attention during like all the Adrian Peterson contract stuff, like Ben Dogger came out the villain of that to Vikings fans.
Yeah,
love to hear about bad things happening to him.
But in terms of questions I'd ask Kwesi, it wouldn't be about any of this free agency stuff. I'm sure that's important. But for me, it would just be like, hey, what have the first couple of years of being in charge of drafts taught you, and how are you going to change your approach? I don't know if that's a question he'll answer, but I feel like the kind of answer that he might give if he's forthright will tell us a lot, because is he going to overreact to that poor initial draft class? Is he going to underreact to that poor initial draft class? Is he going to trust himself more now that he's had more experience? Because my understanding of that initial draft class is that he was leaning on a lot of people to kind of give him evaluations. And what does what does the event like the combine say about these players that maybe you learned too much about or leaned too much on or maybe not enough on, right? A player like Lewis Seen is a really interesting example of an evaluation failure. How did that go about? Are you just going to blame the injury because this is a first-round pick that was a special teamer his first year? What's kind of involved there? Did we learn a lot about how quickly his eyes move? That kind of stuff. So I want to learn what lessons he's learned about the draft in the past couple of years.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
How he answers that.
Yeah. Right. It's such an art, by the way, to ask these guys these questions because you're always going to get GM and coach speak, but there is an art and a way that you can somewhat kind of, invoke a little bit more of like just the basic cliche answers and get some actual real substance and content. Like, I remember, was it the last game of the season? KOC talked about, hey, we got to figure out how to evolve the running game with the offensive line's got to get better and whatnot. I mean, that would be something I would try to ask KOC specifically. How do you plan on evolving the Vikings running game? Maybe just beyond offensive line additions or subtractions, perhaps, whatever that's going to look like. Like, I think it was Alec Lewis. Let me try to find it real quick. Alec Lewis pulled up some rushing statistics, yards per carry. Vikings in the red zone specifically last year. Yards per carry, 31st in the league, so almost dead last. EPA per rush, 31st in the league. This is all just in the red zone. A success rate, 31st in the league. Now, obviously, I mean, you got JJ, you got Addison, you got Hawkinson for half the year. They passed a lot. They passed a lot down in the 10, within the 5, all that stuff. But like some of these stats you just can't ignore. And it seems like not just last year, but since KOC's been here, the running game, albeit improved with Aaron Jones this year for sure. Would love to have him back. But, how are you going to, I mean, you're the one who said it. You're the one who went up to the podium and called this out. How are you going to make that running game and that offensive line a little bit better? That's what I would be intrigued about and kind of targeting with KOC specifically. Let's go to a couple of questions. Go ahead.
I have one that I had from that I've gotten a couple times in like mailbags and haven't really been able to engage with, which is Brian Flores is like, we've basically always had this relationship with him where it feels like he's got one foot out the door to a head coaching job. Like even his first year, we're like, well, he's only going to be here for a year. Right. And then last year it's like, well, he's going to get a job and we're probably going to have the same attitude. So like, how do you build a defense with the understanding that your defensive coordinator situation is like temporary at best?
Such a good question.
Or do you like,
do you just bring in good players, or what do you got to do? Like,
but like what, like stylistically, right? Like there are guys that don't fit what Flores does.
Right.
If they're good and you avoid them, and then Flores gets another head coaching job, like how do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
That's a really good question too. The biggest issue with these combine availabilities, especially now that I don't cover the team day to day, so I don't get like the side conversations that often are given to local beat reporters, which is really invaluable. I'm glad that they do that. Is that I'm probably only going to get one question. I like that question too. So I don't know. Right. But you get like a bunch of national guys, you get a bunch of like draft specific people coming in. They all ask one or two questions. Sometimes you get a jerk who just asks a stupid question just to be mean. I
First time here trying to get on, NFL Network or ESPN.
Some guy fresh out of college. Like,
Yeah,
they think that being an a-hole is the same as being like a tough journalist, and it's like, oh,
yeah, watch too much Colin Cowherd.
Yeah, I mean, almost precisely, yeah. But like, there was a guy last year that was like, why don't you play with enough heart or something like that to Caleb Williams, and
that's right, yeah.
And he got like roasted to hell. Which good. I can't believe he did that. But so like it'll be tough in that environment to be asking multiple questions, but. Man, I really like that question too. That's going to be a difficult one to figure out.
Yeah, for sure. Crossing our fingers. Somebody asked at least one of those questions for sure. Good questions to ask. Again, Tuesday, not sure. I'm sure Tuesday afternoon at some point, Kwesi and KOC up at the podium in Indy. We got about 5-10 minutes before Ron comes on. A couple quick rapid fire questions sent in from some fans. This first one's from Sam Ekstrom, Vermilion, South Dakota. If you could tag and trade Sam Darnold, are there any starters on the possible other teams you could get back in the deal. This one's really tough because I feel like any team that Darnold's going to go to is already not in a great shape. Like their roster and team, Raiders, Giants, Browns are not great. And asking for like a young core piece back just doesn't seem very feasible. If the value is, in a dream world, a second round pick back, more likely like a day 3 pick for Sam Darnold. Who am I supposed to ask for? You know what I mean? I'd rather have the draft pick and take a shot on a young guy that I like versus, I'm looking at some of the Tyree Wilson, maybe the Raiders bust of a top 10 pick.
A starter that's bad. That's the move. That's like a starter that won't win the job here.
Right. Like, what are we doing? Like, just give me my mid 4th rounder, and I think call it a day.
I mean,
they're not gonna. They kind of told us.
Yeah, they basically told us. But I mean, so I looked through teams that were rumored. I looked through the Raiders, Giants, Titans, Rams, and Saints to see, and none of these guys are guys that I'd trade straight up. I'd want something in addition.
Still get that day 3 pick. Yeah, something.
Exactly. Maybe the boldest ask was for the Raiders. I was like, hey, why not throw Jacoby Myers in there? Then you can get like a solid 3 receiver set.
Yeah.
Gardner Minshew.
That's the boldest one, huh?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not asking for Christian Wilkins.
Like, right. What do we do? Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Jackson Powers, one of your
right. Like these are not these things that are going to happen.
No,
and I want picks, right? And so I have to ask for less than the straight up value of Sam Darnold. So for the Raiders, it was Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Myers. For the Giants, I think this one I was probably over my skis a little bit with Tyler Nubin, but that would have been fun.
Yeah.
Bobby Okereke.
Go for Homer, respect.
Yeah, of course. Bobby Okereke, Drew Lock, Tyrone Tracy. Probably not going to get Tyrone Tracy, but hey.
That would be nice.
Good.
Hey, worst they can do is say no. Yeah. Hey, Cleveland, you don't want to pay Denzel Ward, right? He had another concussion last year.
Look,
like, come on, man.
Look, you're in cap hell for reasons undisclosed. You don't want to pay Denzel Ward.
You don't want this Pro Bowl cornerback anymore, do you?
And then like an aging veteran like Jeffrey Simmons, like maybe back into his career, he could help out a couple years. I wanted some secondary help. So from the Titans and Rams, I would ask for maybe Cheeto, Awuzie, L'Jarius Sneed, Cameron Kinchins, Quentin Lake. Running backs, I already mentioned Tyrone Tracy, but also Tony Pollard, maybe. This is if you can't work something out with Aaron Jones, obviously.
Yeah.
I did ask for some receivers. So from the Rams, Jordan Whittington, and from the Saints, Rashid Shaheed. That one's kind of bold. And then, also cornerback, Alontae Taylor. So those were kind of the areas I was looking in. Guys that are pretty good, but are certainly not, outstanding. Maybe Tyler Nubin is the biggest reach, but like,
right.
He's okay.
Yeah. Invested. Yeah. Second round pick, 2 years ago, I suppose. Yeah. Maybe a little reluctant to give up some young guys, but I'm with you. It's kind of a tough exercise, to be honest, because again, most of these teams aren't probably we're already bad. Now we're supposed to give I get it, quarterback, most important position, but now we're supposed to give some of our young core pieces away too. So kind of a tough exercise, but definitely agree with a couple of those names on the list. Another one, rapid fire. What's an undesirable path you don't want to see the Vikings take this offseason? So we always talk about our wish list, what we want, plan A, plan B. Is there just one thing you don't want to see the Vikings do this offseason? Maybe it's just overpay for a big Trey Smith prize free agent and get kind of that quote-unquote bad value. You're buying when the stock is at its highest. But, any other paths or avenues you hope the Vikings don't go down as kind of all this unfolds over the next few weeks?
I saw Daniel Jeremiah mock Tre'Veon Henderson to the Vikings in round 1. So
wow. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Where did he have Genty go?
I have not seen that mock or Daniel Jeremiah's rankings. I've only heard like 3 different people suggest something ridiculous from it.
Well,
yeah.
Where did Genty go? If he had Henderson going 24, where did Genty go? Top 15? Top 12?
I think he went top 10.
Man.
I mean, this is like an outstanding running back class, but it's
absolutely
outstanding in every element, which is kind of why I don't want a first round guy, especially this year, but generally I don't, right? But like, the top is better than it usually is. The middle is better than it usually is. The bottom is better than it usually is. It's just a crazy class, right? So I'd probably wait. Genty went 21 in that mock. Thank you, Taylor.
Oh, interesting.
That's nuts.
Run on running backs, baby.
Yeah, it must have been a run. But I thought like the Vikings got like the 3rd running. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so I don't want that. I don't want like a multi-year offensive tackles to the Vikings in the first, hopefully to convert to guard. Sorry, Burrito Bill told us that there were mocks.
No,
of
Arif, not to convert to guard.
No,
this
no.
This was a thing like right after the wildcard game, and literally the blurb was like, Sam Darnold took 9 sacks in the playoffs. They bolstered their O-line, and it just like moved on.
Yeah.
That's a take.
That's a take.
It's like clearly they just didn't look up the roster, and they puked out a mock draft on deadline, and it's like, okay, I don't need
Yeah, and they got the clicks they got, so that's annoying because I typically respect Jeremiah quite a bit. Run on running backs, 4 running backs.
Oh, not Jeremiah, just people.
Okay, good. Yeah, but like not a multi-year deal for Sam Darnold. Don't want that. Don't want an offensive tackle who's only playing offensive tackle in the first. That's crazy.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of different paths the Vikings can take. Not many that seem likely that I would be upset about. I don't know. It feels like there's kind of a lot of positive.
For me, it's very enticing to go make a splash. I wanted Joe Thuney when Joe Thuney came out, and even Luke, you brought this up. Like even Joe Thuney, as good as the Chiefs has been, and the offensive line, really not worth the money. So it's always enticing. In the
kind of the reason they lost the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
like, they played him out of position. It's not his fault, but
they played him out of position. Like that's I wouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not his fault, but like it's all. But yeah, that's. Not a perfect player.
You just got to be careful making a splash. Again, I know it's always fun right now, especially when a team's got a lot of cap space and money and an obvious need as well. You can turn a weakness into a strength. Go get your Steve Hutchinson, right? But like when you look back, more times than not, usually when you look back, it ends up being not great value 2, 3, 4 years into those contracts. So you just got to be careful. That's all. If they don't bring Daniel Jones back, I think we might have talked about this like a month ago. If they don't bring Daniel Jones back, who's your top 1 or 2 quarterback backups on your wish list? Here's the list. Trey Lance, obviously that's a Reefs guy. Jacoby Brissett, Mariota.
Trey Lance going to be in the NFL?
Yeah, it's up for debate.
Great question.
It's up for
debate. Great question. What position does he play in the UFL? Actually,
well, he's athlete. They just call him an athlete.
Yeah, athlete. Like a
Drew
Terrell Pryor-esque Wildcat quarterback.
Terrell Pryor, dude.
Man.
Wow, he ripped it up at the Senior Bowl. Stidham, Justin Fields, Joe Flacco, Winston. I'd probably pick Winston to be honest, just for the interviews.
I'm picking Flacco.
You're going Flacco? Wacko Flacco?
Old man hoops, baby.
Yeah.
What a mentor. Yeah.
Mac Jones, Carson.
You telling me
Wentz.
Kevin O'Connell likes to throw deep?
Let's go. Last
Vikings,
one.
you thought Vikings benefited from DPI this year.
Be honored to watch the end of Joe Flacco's career as he gets demolished in Week 10 as another offensive tackle goes down.
Yeah, let him eat that. I kind of like Jimmy G.
Jimmy G, I feel like doesn't get talked about a ton. Yeah, Jimmy G. Yeah.
Obviously has Shanahan familiarity, but just like the complete opposite of a lot of the historical Vikings backups who were just like, hey, I want to take the biggest chance possible for no clearly well-defined reason. And then you're like, okay, we're going to go from Nick Mullins to Jimmy G. And it's like, yeah, we can matriculate down the field with a bunch of 8-yard outs and stuff. That's great.
All right, we got Ron Johnson coming in. Let's go to our quick ad read, and we'll bring in Ron Johnson. We got to talk about the 6 Golden Gophers invited to the Combine. That's all coming up right after this. Today's episode brought to us by TurboTax. You know, it's definitely that time of year. Your taxes are waiting. You got to sit and wonder, am I getting money back this year? But now you can match up with TurboTax and an expert who can file your taxes as soon as today. TurboTax gives you your taxes their full undivided attention as they work on your return in real time, all while providing step-by-step process, updates, progress, so you can focus on your day. Rest assured, every TurboTax expert, they're going to find every possible deduction as well as filing every form and investment with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Link up with an expert today on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/lockdown guarantees. Okay, we got Ron Johnson. He's still in Mexico, man? What's going on? Are you coming back? Are you ever coming back, Ron? Okay, well,
guess not.
You know what? I guess he.
I think we got what we needed.
I guess we got what we wanted. Ron Johnson, host of the Ron Johnson Show, each and every Tuesday. Follow him on X at 3Ron Johnson. Ron, can you hear us? Hola, amigo. ¿Cómo estás? Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We got you. We got you. Hey, okay. Ron, how many Titleist Pro V1s have gone in that alligator swamp off hole 15 by now? How many rounds you got in?
We've only played one. I didn't want to play again, but we're gonna play again today. So
okay,
I took a couple of days off, but I'm playing.
Very golf of you.
So yeah. I've only lost technically one actual ball on a real shot. The other one was
pretty good. Fair enough.
I was, as you hit one in and then you're like, let me see if I can get it over. Didn't work.
Didn't work. There it goes. Hey, I don't know if you heard this. Gophers are sending 6 prospects to Indy this year. That's a new team record for the Gophers. Max Brosmer, Daniel Jackson, Aranturi Ursure, Ja Joyner, Justin Wally, Cody Lindenberg rounds out the group. That's a healthy group right there. The left tackle, Ursary, probably the highest projected on most of these mock drafts and big boards as of now. But these guys inside and out. You watched every game. Which guy of that group, strictly from like an athletic standpoint, do you think is going to maybe turn some heads and come away as a big winner this time next week?
Honestly, Ariante Ursary, when people see him up close, his body size, he's a humongous human being. We've had him on the PJ Flex show a couple times. I haven't actually got him on my podcast yet, but I'm working on that. But, when you stand next to him and just sit down with him and talk to him, one, he's a great kid too. Like, he doesn't have that weirdness to him. He's a normal, nothing against some players, but some players are weird. Like, if you talk to him, there's some weird to him. And he doesn't have any of that. Like, there's no red flags. There's no nothing saying if we draft him early, he's going to be a problem for us later. He's just a good kid overall. And then I'd say the next one, Ethan Robinson. He's not, I don't know if he's in that group because I haven't looked at it yet, but I know Ethan Robinson, from just a workout standpoint later, is going to turn some heads. Because he's legit 6'1". And when I stood next to him, I was like, man, this kid is looking me eye to eye. Even though he's about 6'1", he's a tall corner. But I'd say Justin Wiley. When coaches see Justin Wiley move, when they see his ability to get in and out of cuts, when he does a 3-cone drill, when he does some of the break drills that DBs do, I think Justin Wiley is really going to wow a lot of these staffs because, again, he played in a system where he was asked to play a lot of man. They had to switch to zone, and that's a lot of, I could even see Brian Flores maybe saying, if he's still there in the 3rd or 4th round, do we trade up and go get him? Because he could easily fit in that system.
Yeah, Ethan Robinson not invited to the Combine, but was at the Shrine Game, so I know he's on people's boards and, pending how the Pro Day goes and whatnot, could even get drafted. We'll see. Luke, what do you got for Ron Johnson today?
Yeah, earlier in the show we were talking about, what's the nightmare for this offseason, and we kind of couldn't think of a good one outside of, them doing something ridiculous. So is there anything that's, a real option for the Vikings that you're, actively rooting against?
Oh, man. And you're talking about the draft or you're talking about free agency?
Just the offseason.
Offseason in general.
Anything.
Honestly, there's nothing I'm rooting against. And man, I've learned in the last 10 years of doing Vikings Game Day Live that we used to always be like, oh, I can't believe they did that. Or we'd be like, man, they got to do this. I love that move. And then it doesn't work. So, I'm not going to say any names of players they drafted where we were like, oh, man, this is a great pickup. And then they get them and they're like, yeah, what was that about? I would honestly say the only thing I would be concerned with, and Sam brought this up yesterday, is running it back with some of these free agents. That's the one thing I would be a little bit concerned about. I think there's some consistent D-tackle, options out there and 3 technique options out there that I feel like, and that Sam gave the name, I think it was Jerry Tillery, and I think Bullard maybe, but when you think about the other options out there, I would look at maybe getting somebody a little bit more Aaron Donald-ish.
Yeah, of course. Go out on Aaron Donald. Hall of Fame.
Can't stop the run.
Yeah.
I got the microphone cut off. Let me see if I can get it back.
Oh, we got you back. We got you back.
You're back.
You're good. You're good. Go sign Aaron Donald.
The phone. Here it comes. Back to my headphones.
Live production, everybody.
But anyway,
live production.
There it is. There it is.
Yep.
Back in the headphones. So, but yeah, I'd say that's what I'd be worried about, running it back with those same guys. Like I wouldn't, and mainly the D line. Like I would, and same with corner. Like I don't think every single corner, Shaq, Gilmore, Byron, like you can't bring everybody back.
Yeah.
So you gotta find some different options there as well. So I'd say my thought more on the defensive side. I feel like there needs to be a shakeup because Brian Flores clearly has his 2 defensive ends. He has his linebackers. He has his safeties. Now let's go find some additional corners and D tackles to really fill in the pieces of that puzzle.
Yeah, go scout out that volleyball game behind you. See if you can find an Aaron Donald-esque type of athlete back there. Bring him back home.
I'm not going to lie. I totally almost forgot about this today. And then I'm standing there talking to my guy. And he's like, so, blah, blah. And what do you do? And I was like, oh, I do a podcast. And I looked at my watch. I'm like, oh, crap. Because I was supposed to be in this game. So it's like a little volleyball tournament they do every day at 11 and 3. So, this is the 11 o'clock volleyball game tournament. And basically, I pick up volleyball. You get to a team, and then you wait on the sideline till your turn. I'm a dominant at the net. Like, at the net,
I imagine.
I'm sure.
I'm an unstoppable force up there.
Well, thank that guy for asking you what you do so you remember to come on the pod today for us.
Yeah, he's on the court now. So
Imagine.
I don't know if you can see him. He has the hat on and the blue on the other side. He's one of the employees here.
Love that guy. Yeah,
imagine just being like an accountant on your vacation to Mexico, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'll join the volleyball game," and then Gopher legend Ron Johnson pops up to the net and just dunks on you,
and just pile drives one India.
Oh yeah, I got
meet the
footage.
parent style.
My wife tells me not to spike it too hard on some of these people, so I got some footage there.
Ron, what did I tell you? Ron, get over here. Arif, last one for Ron, then we'll let him get back to his volleyball game.
Remember Meet the Falkers when he jumped up and
Meet
spiked
the
it and let the girls know? Yeah, that's exactly
that's
what
the style.
But I've learned I can't do that to everybody.
You studied the film. That's your film. That's your all 22. That's your all 22 you studied.
The key is that they keep on inviting you back. I get it.
He picked me up today when I came over. He's like, "You're on my team today, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got to call and love this thing."
Number one pick every time. Arif, what do you got?
Yeah, final question. We got the combine coming up. What is like if you were like an agent for a prospect, bringing them into the combine? What's the biggest pitfall that you would tell a prospect to avoid that you kind of see happen all the time when it comes to like an event like the NFL Combine?
So first would be like drugs. So if there's anything you take medicinal wise, I would be very like open about it, or I would just say, hey, look, man, for 3 days, just don't do it, because even if you test positive at the combine, the problem is they don't really know medicinal versus like you just made a mistake. If you guys remember, Kelly Campbell came to the Vikings. That's the reason why he didn't get drafted. He tested positive for marijuana at the combine, and he actually just did it because he was nervous. Like I remember we were all in the room together, me, him, Roy Williams. There was a couple guys in there, and not Roy Williams, the tackle, because there was 2 that year. Roy Williams, and not the receiver,
the safety.
There was the safety.
Yeah.
So we were all in the room with Kelly Campbell, me, him, Rohan Davey, and a bunch of guys. And I remember Kelly like saying something about being nervous, and then like 2 days later, we got like a little message about these guys on the list tested positive, and Kelly's name was on there, because I remember seeing him like grab his stuff and kind of like, man, I'm gonna just go ahead and take off. And so that, because he knew he had ruined it. So I would say that's one thing to be aware of. Like, be very honest with like any drugs, medicinal, whatever, prescribed. The other thing, man, is you're always on display. So like being nice to everybody, like the valet, the person holding the door for you, the person at the restaurant, everything you do when you're walking around, from the airport to the inside to when you're done, the people maybe even holding your clothes when you're going to run the 40, like all these scouts, man, they have so many scouts there. They're watching everything because they want to know, is this guy a butthole? Like, is he a guy that we can we trust this guy at 2 a.m.? And we just had Jasper Brinkley on, former Viking linebacker who's now player personnel director for the Vikings. And he basically talks about that. He talks about, here's some guys and here's what my job is. He's like, I'm here to take that 2 a.m., 3 a.m. phone call. I'm here to, if something happens, I'm here for you. And so he's going to be a guy like that too, where they're at the combine And guys like him are looking like, hey, coach, I saw this, or hey, coach, I saw this, or hey, coach, I saw, like they're building out FBI style like deals of like, here's what this person is about. And I text Reggie Wayne about this too. The other thing is be yourself. And Reggie Wayne, because I trained a couple guys that are going into the draft this year, receiver wise, and tight ends. And I text Reggie Wayne because I'm like, look, man, as a guy, receiver coach, what are you looking for? And he said, receivers, and there's receivers. I'm guessing it's every position. Be able to speak your offense. So whatever your offense was, speak it, but speak it fluently. Like, don't give me no BS. Like, oh, I got a 5-yard out hit. Like, he's like, speak your offense. Like, against this coverage, what do you have against this coverage? Because when you tell them what it is, like if you call it cowboy, they'll say, okay, draw cowboy for me. You go draw cowboy, which when I was with the coach, it's just double corners. And I don't know why. Hey, I do, because it looks like a lasso. If you look at 2 corner routes, it looks like 2 lassos being lassoed by a cowboy. So Peyton Manning called it cowboy. So you had double corners, and then you had hitches with either a whip route, and that's the other part of a cowboy, the whip. So you could have a hitch with a in or a whip return. And they say, when you say that, draw it for us. And when you draw it, then they'll say, oh, that's our blank. And then they're trying to tell you, like, hey, you're running the same thing we're running, but this is what we call it. And then they'll say, like, blah, blah. Like, if we draft you, just know. And so they want you to be able to speak your offense. And one thing, the funny thing, I'll say this too, it doesn't matter. Reggie was like, honestly, he's like, as a staff, we have no idea what your offense is. So he said, as long as you make it sound right, we're going to believe you. He said, when guys are stuttering he said when guys are stuttering or they like make stuff up, like, oh, I got a giant route. What's a giant? Oh, a 12-yard comeback. And then you start talking, and you're like, oh, and then I got a giant route. No, what's a giant route? A 15-yard comeback. And they're like, wait, this dude just called the same, like, they're like, look, you're just talking now. And so that's what he said too. He's like, man, speak your offense and know it. So I'm guessing that's defense, speak your defense. If you're a cornerback, speak your coverage, like be you. That's the pitfalls. If you're not you and you're trying to be somebody else, you're trying to be Deion Sanders and show up in wing tips and run the 40 without stretching, they're going to know, like, that's not you. Like, be you.
Yeah, well said, Ron. Hey, we've taken up enough of your time. We'll let you get back to it. Check them out every Tuesday. You going to be back next Tuesday for the Ron Johnson Show? I
will be back. We are getting back like Monday. So I'll be back as long as nothing happens. Last year, our flight got delayed because of the weather. So we had to stay an extra day. So
Got it. Yeah, and if you haven't checked it out already, Jasper Brinkley on the Ron Johnson Show, as well as Gophers prospect Daniel Jackson. Again, follow him on X, @3Ron Johnson. We'll talk to you next week, Ron.
All right, appreciate it.
Later. Ron Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, Ron Johnson. You guys jealous? That looked like about 83 degrees. I mean, it's what, like 12 degrees here right now? Well, Luke, you don't deal with this, but
not a problem.
Me and Arif thing, so.
Can't really.
Yeah, it was like -30 with wind chill 2 days ago. But okay. No, I'm not jealous.
No, not at all. Not at all. Go and get your mail. You come back with windburn. That's great. It's great. That's what you want. One more quick segment. I'll unveil my prospect of the day for the Vikes. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode also brought to us by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a huge return, $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 wager wins. Another fantastic promo you don't want to miss from FanDuel. Why I love FanDuel, when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Plus, if you're like me, sometimes you miss the opening tip. Don't worry. You can place live bets throughout the game so you can always stay in the action. And if you want an even bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Again, $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed if your first $5 wager wins. If it were me, I'd be looking at a heavy favorite money line to get my $150 in bonus bets. But go check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 wager wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Okay, prospect of the day. Let's jump back to the first round. Kind of back half of the first round, I guess, as all these guys that I talk about, because obviously the Vikings are sitting at 24. But back to defensive tackle, Derek Harmon from Oregon.
Oh man, I might get to this guy today.
Oh, I love this. Okay, yes, we can compare.
So tell me what I need to know.
So, well, first of all, I mean, kind of the common denominator here that I when I'm kind of looking at all these prospects, they're not always necessarily a first round guy. Maybe, the Vikings have a late third, 2 fifths, trying to find somebody in there, and a lot's going to change with the combine, pro days, all that stuff with these stocks. But trying to target where about some of these guys are supposed to go. And obviously, what the Vikings needs, it's not a secret. Getting some juice inside the trenches, having a guy that can penetrate a little bit, collapse the pocket, I think would just, any team in the league would obviously love that. And I think it would just add a new fun element that Flores really hasn't had here, at least not consistently. So Derek Harmon, number 1 in the country for all defensive tackles when it came to quarterback pressures. 55 quarterback pressures for a defensive tackle. That was 12 more than the next closest guy. So clearing away, he's the guy with the most pressures of this entire group, which, again, we've talked about. This is a very deep defensive tackle group. More pressures than a guy like Mason Graham, probably going to go in the top 5 for Michigan. I talked about Kenneth Grant, his Michigan teammate, more than Kenneth Grant. Big, strong, 6'5", 310-pounder, but twitchy for how big he is. Twitchy movement skills, can wreak some havoc in the backfield. Great hands. Luke, when you watch this guy, just watch his hands for a few times. Fantastic rip move with those hands. Good bull rush. I just think he kind of processes things pretty quick. He gets a good jump for how big he is. And then if you can just beat your man one-on-one, boom, he's in the backfield, gets the quarterback off his spot. I don't remember. I don't have his sack numbers or tackle for loss numbers. I should have wrote those down. But again, he's the guy who can get that quarterback off the spot. Sometimes that opens up big plays, big splash plays, sacks, tackles for loss for his teammates. But led the country, 55 quarterback pressures. I really liked him. Honestly, and I haven't looked at like Daniel Jeremiah's mock. I should pull it up right now to see where he went. But I wouldn't be shocked if he was gone by pick 24. But if he fell in their lap, I'd be all about it. Derek Harmon, Oregon. Just another defensive tackle to put on the list. The theme here, the common theme, Jordan Phillips. Arif, you mentioned he balled out of the Shrine game. He was my defensive tackle or prospect of the day on Monday. Kenneth Grant, I did a few episodes ago. CJ West from Indiana, more of like a day 3 guy, but I really like. I still haven't touched on Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. The Texas A&M guy, what's his name? Shamar Stewart from A&M. So you're just starting to see, it's just loaded, dude. Every class has its strengths and weaknesses, its own kind of unique fingerprint. Defensive tackles and running backs in this class. You missed the boat if you need a quarterback this year. That was last year. But defensive tackles and running backs, all different shapes and sizes. Pick your flavor. There's going to be some good options at 24. Or maybe you trade down, you get some extra picks, you take advantage of the depth. Maybe you get a guy that, would have been maybe, taken a couple picks or maybe even a round or 2 higher in previous years. Maybe you take Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama we've talked about. You come back and get defensive tackle value in round 3 or round 5 with those 2 picks. But a lot of options. Free agency, like we always talk about, obviously going to dictate kind of the direction they go. But the hope is, and this for every team, fill your needs in free agency so you can go into the draft with that at least BPA type of mindset. So obviously that's not always the case, but as you guys kind of dive into this class more and more, is there any guys that jump out to you, early on in this process for the Vikes, or just any guys that you're like, okay, I got to write him down, got to watch some more games on him, or anything that it pertains to to the Vikes and like where they're picking, their needs, kind of how they can maximize their selections as they have. I know it's still early, but are you guys on team trade down? Are you team trenches no matter what? Let's see what happens in free agency first, because it's too hard to tell. Where are you guys kind of at in your draft process?
There's so many things. I mean, like if they go through free agency and corner doesn't get addressed well, this just becomes an emergency and you just become priced in. And then all the trenches stuff, Kenneth Grant, all all those guys don't matter anymore because you need a corner so bad.
Yeah.
I did watch Jordan Phillips yesterday.
And
whatever. Where are we talking about taking this guy?
Sorry, I missed it. Who'd you say?
Jordan Phillips. Where are we talking about taking? I finally got around to him, and
I brought him up as like one of their maybe a late third, or more ideally their 2 fifths. Arif came on and said, first round, second round pick.
So I've seen him ranked in between the 40s and the 90s. There's a wide spread for this guy.
Big pass on that one.
No sacks in his collegiate career, no forced fumbles, short arms. But
he
again,
doesn't get off the ball.
I was talking more about like day 3 kind of guy.
He doesn't get off the ball. This is somebody that, and so we want to talk about the combine too. I will reconsider this because he had a good triangle, right? Mm-hmm. I'll reconsider this if he like shows a whole bunch of measured explosiveness at the combine. But basically, when he lines up, his feet are really wide, and so he looks like a frog. Like the way that his 4-point stance is.
Yeah.
And he does not get off the... Yeah. He shoots straight up and then gets smoked. Like that Iowa game is hideous. That is ugly tape. That he was the worst player on that D-line. He did not look like an NFL player at all in that game. And you can't have that kind of day if you're going to be like a 40-90 kind of guy. Yeah. But if you look at the clips from the Shrine Bowl where he was dominating, his feet had moved in a little bit and he was getting off a lot faster. So that might have been a thing that was really holding him back. That's the way that everybody at Maryland lined up. So I think Maryland's D-line coach is doing something weird. They did all kinds of weird things over there. He was like hopping off the ball, like both feet fully off the ground and then getting smoked.
Yeah.
So I don't know what is going on there. But that to me feels like if I have to rescue you from your bad coaching and fix all your habits, I'm not spending a lot of capital on that. That is a project, 5th rounder, like max for me.
Yeah, if you remember when I was kind of breaking him down, I was like, this guy's got a really weird stance, like old school, like kind of just weird that just kind of stuck out to me as very odd.
His first step every single time takes his foot from way outside and immediately just replants it inside, which just wastes time. It's like start there. Just start there.
Yeah, he loses a lot off that first step for sure. But coaching, right? Coaching, perhaps. Developmental guy. Hey, 5th round guys, we're talking day 3, or at least that's kind of where I kind of envisioned him.
Are we?
They ain't going to be like Hall of Fame type of dudes, right? But so you're passing. You're passing. Arif thinks he's going to go in the top 50, and I'm kind of right in the middle. How about that? Any other guys you've watched? Any other trends or anything that just you're kind of learning some more knowledge about as it pertains to the Vikes? Could be a specific guy, could be maybe a direction they want to go. Again, we've kind of already talked about free agency is going to kind of be the domino effect, which totally makes sense. But anything else?
Yeah, I just think that because the positions that the Vikings could use a lot of investment in are relatively deep, especially like defensive tackle, we talked about that, running back, we talked about that. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make sense to me to pick in the first round. Like, I just feel like, obviously, when you get a bunch of like stats nerds together, they always tell you to trade down, and then Kwesi has traded down, and those trades have not been remarkable value-wise compared to some other trades down in similar spots. But I just think that if you want to invest in defensive tackle and running back in the draft, and even cornerback, which is an average-ish class, it's not that bad, it's not that good. I don't see the value in picking in the first round unless we see someone like fall, right? Like if we see like Michigan's corner like fall in the draft somehow, right? Then okay, fine. But I think for the most part, to me, it's just you trade down, see if you can grab, somebody in the second round that is also falling. I don't know, like Jahdae Barron from Texas is a versatile corner. Mm-hmm. Like you might grab him when he falls. The Florida State corner might grab him if he falls, but like in the second round, I mean. Yeah. But I don't see a lot of value given where the Vikings are needs wise, and where the positions are arrayed in this year's draft. Why you would pick in the first round?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, again, I think the name of the game is trying to maximize your value. If you think you're going to get good value at these positions that I need later in the draft, and you can move down now. We're going to spend the next 2 months talking about trade down. You got to have a trade partner that wants to move up for a guy as well. So kind of easier said than done sometimes. But I'm with you. Having only 4 picks as of now, and that's with that 3rd round comp pick. Yeah. Especially, again, we'll talk about free agency and see how that unfolds. But especially with so many holes, I'm all about it. If you can scoop up an extra 3rd round pick and move back 4 or 5 spots, whatever it might look like. Yeah, I'm with you. Or even just start stockpiling for next year's draft as well. I'm usually more times than not always cool with the trade down unless somebody that you're just absolutely emphatic and in love with that shouldn't have been there falls in your lap. But otherwise, just give me as many scratch outs and lotto tickets as possible, man, because as much as we watch these guys and teams interview them and we do the combine and pro days and it's very analytical nowadays and all that. It's still not. We haven't figured it out, no matter how hard we try. So more lotto picks, more scratch offs. I think the better. So yeah, I'm always team trade down for sure. Last one, then we'll get out of here. Anybody got a favorite combine story? I love why I'm thinking of this is because I forgot about the Spielman fiasco, and I just absolutely love that. That was absolutely fantastic. Anybody else got like any funny combine story or memory you guys remember? Obviously, cool stuff happened last year with Xavier Worthy breaking the 40 record. That was crazy. Yeah. That was just super cool to see. Speaking of underwear Olympics, Chris Jones. Do we all remember the Chris Jones fiasco?
Yeah.
He ended up all right.
Yeah,
he's doing fine for himself.
He's doing okay. If you told him then what we know now, he'd be like, I'm cool.
He'd been like, you know what? It's all right.
I mean, like the morning that Jalen Carter had his availability, we were like, hey, so an arrest warrant was issued for him in Georgia last night. Is he going to be here? What's the plan? What's going on? And we didn't get a bunch of clarity on whether or not Jalen Carter was going to do his podium session the next morning. So we were just like milling around the area that he would be. And we were like, he should not be here. But if he's here, this is going to be great content, right? It was just like, what is happening? And then eventually, like someone from, I think it's the NFS, came out and said, okay, last night he flew out to Georgia and had like submitted himself for arrest or whatever, right? It was like he turned himself over to the police so that they could have like answers to this car crash situation. But yeah, that one was like a nuts like 20 minutes because like all of that news that he was involved with that came out while we were at the combine.
In time. In real time.
So like I remember a bit ago, I don't know if it was McShay or another talking head that had talked about how much Jalen Carter was disliked by his teammates or whatever, and that there were a lot of off-field flags for him. That was back in December. Before, by the way, this car accident incident occurred in January, so this is before that. And I remember like a couple of people came out to defend Jalen Carter, including draft analysts, not just players. And I was talking to one of them who had like a full-throated, like really strong defense of Carter in like the way that he's perceived at the Georgia program. And then this happens. I'm like, hey man, you like went out there, like a bunch of people went out there, but you went out there. Like your stuff went viral in defense of Jalen Carter. And then this happened. How are you feeling? And he's like, this has nothing to do with that. And I was like, that doesn't matter. It's the internet. That doesn't matter at all. So like the whole, it was just like a crazy, like cascade of things that occurred while we were all at the combine. So I guess that's probably
that was phenomenal. The way that all unfolded in real time like that was absolutely insane. I'm actually I just Googled a couple. How about Vince Young getting a 6 on the Wonderlic, but then the NFL came out and said there was an error, so you get to retake it. He got a 16 the next time. So improvement. I mean, almost tripled it, but still got 16, man. Calvin Johnson showed up at 2:39 and ran a 4.35
in someone else's shoes, right?
In someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
Oh man, that one's pretty good. Chris Johnson showed up, ran that 4.24. That was fun for a while until Xavier Worthy broke that. Darius Hayward-Bay.
Xavier Worthy ruined our fun.
Darius Hayward-Bay, classic Al Davis era. Darius Hayward-Bay, not good at all, but ran a 4.3 and had a 40-inch vert. Al Davis takes him 7th overall. Not a good player at all, but love the speed, stuff. Man.
I think the thing that to watch out this time is like a bunch of people are now, for the past couple of years, have been making up stories about what teams do at the NFL Combine. Like, because we've heard all these crazy interview stories, like they ask these silly questions, or like they'll like push a player hard to see how the player responds or whatever. And now there's like stories like, oh yeah, they like force-fed milk because they knew he was lactose intolerant. And it's like, okay, that's clearly made up, but like a bunch of people now think that's true.
Right. It's out there now.
It's like, watch out for these like weird fake combine stories, because we're now preconditioned to believe that, these coaches and staffs who do weird things, in fairness, are going to do the weirdest possible thing.
Maybe that's what you should ask KOC and Kwesi when you get over there on Tuesday.
Are you going to force feed a lactose intolerant player milk? Yes or no?
It's the weirdest thing you're going to do. All right. Huh? Well, what did Kwesi say about a Caleb Evans? Like, I went in a dark room.
Oh, yeah, like watched him late at night. Like,
yeah, went in a dark room, and this is my guy.
It's like intimate.
Yeah, it was.
I like the actual scouting of the combine is sort of become a side event to like TamperCon, which is what
for sure. Yeah.
the combine really is now. I love thinking back to all the stuff that was going on at the combine, but we didn't learn about it till later. Like the Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins just like definitely breaking a whole bunch of rules only for Cousins to immediately in his introductory press conference blow up their spot. Phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, and then they didn't get punished for it, even though he just said that they violated the rules.
Didn't they? I thought they lost like a fifth or something.
Oh, did they? Okay.
We didn't get anything. We were hopeful that we were going to get something for some reason. But they lost like a day 3 pick, a late day.
We had discussed on the show that it was actually pretty unlikely that the Vikings would get anything.
Yeah, no, we
did.
The
Eagles were cleared.
Yeah.
That was clear about Barkley. Yeah.
They forfeited a draft pick. I'm looking through the article to see which draft pick it was.
Can't wait. Next week, again, KOC and Kwesi up at the podium on Tuesday. We got to roll. Great stuff per usual. A huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. Again, check out Luke on Locked On Vikings each and every day. Ron Johnson each and every Tuesday on the Ron Johnson Show. Reef on the Wide Left Substack. Anything new over on the Wide Left Substack we can go check out.
Yeah, so there is a unique combine invitee, the likes of which has not been invited for 17 years, a left-footed kicker.
A lefty.
Yeah, and there is kind of a unique challenge with left-footed kickers that you don't see with left-handed quarterbacks or left-handed centers, both of whom are referenced in the story. Read that. That's by my friend Alex Katzen, who wrote a piece about how difficult it might be to break into the NFL as a left-footed kicker. Surprisingly dominant once they make the NFL, but it is tough. So
who was the last dominant one?
Sebastian Janikowski.
Oh, Janny.
Seabass. David Akers.
First rounder.
Yeah. 20th overall, I think.
First rounder.
David Akers, lefty. There's been a couple.
The Grammatica boys weren't lefties, were they? Were they? I can't remember.
Tavecchio, if you remember the 3 games that he played, also a lefty.
How could you forget?
Not coincidental that they both played for the Raiders, by the way. So check that out. That's over at Wide Left Football. I think it's kind of interesting. Every kicker that's been invited at the Combine makes it to an NFL camp. And so I think that's pretty relevant for a position that doesn't feature a lot of lefties to have that guy invited.
Very interesting. Yeah, got to go check that out. That's for sure. That sounds cool. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll be back same time, same place next Monday. But until then, signing out.